Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Karibuni sana, you are so welcome. Welcome back to my channel. I know I have taken a break. It's been a while since you saw my face. It's been a while since I posted anything. So thank you so much for being patient with me as I took the rest that I needed and as I took the break that I needed. My name is Wakeji Kamore and I usually do a Bible summary. If you're here for the very first time, this is what this is about. So since 2022, January, I think mid-January, I've been doing a Bible summary and this is how I do it. So I usually choose a book of the Bible. We've been starting from cover to cover. So we started with Genesis and we're just going to move forward until we get to Revelation. So I choose a book and then we go chapter by chapter. So for every session, for every recording, for every video that I post or recording that I post, I will have read the chapter verse for verse, and then I will explain what my takeouts are or what I think the lessons are from that chapter. So far we have been able to do 11 books, all the way from the book of Genesis to the book of 1 Kings. And we've been able to do a total of 313 chapters. Can you guys imagine that? We've done a total of 313 chapters since we began. A total of 313 chapters. And to even make it interesting, we have done a total of 9,534 verses. That is quite a lot. 9,534 verses since we began from the book of Genesis. The reason I like to do this is first to encourage myself, because sometimes you can feel like, guy, but don't took 1 Kings. Like when you look at how much, this is how much we've done. This is how much we still have to do. Like this side, I'm like, my God, we've only done this. We still have this much to do. So this is the reason why I do the chapters and the verses and the books that we've done, just to encourage myself and to tell myself, imagine you started from zero books, now you're at 11 books. You started from 0 chapters, now you're at 313 chapters. You started from 0 verses, and now you're at 9,534 verses. So first to encourage me and also to encourage yourself, just to know that we are making progress. We are not stagnant, we are making progress. We have learned a lot from the Word of God since we started this Bible summary. So I do hope that if you're here for the very first time, that you will join us by subscribing to this channel and hitting the notification bell so that you never miss anything that goes up. All right. So before we proceed to the book of 2 Kings, it is as my routine to do an overview of the book that we just finished. So we finished the book of 1 Kings a while back, about like maybe half a month ago, because I took a break. But I would like to just close it up nicely, just see what it is that we learned, what were the main things that we learned, just to refresh our minds before we get into the book of 2 Kings, and to also just tie it up nicely before we can move on to the next book. So this is what this video is about. This is an overview of the book of 1 Kings. Karibuni sana. So what is the book of 1 Kings and what were the stories that we learned from that book? The main thing, though, how the book started, is started by us seeing the death of David. So David had been the king before that, in 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, and now he is actually dead. Like the king has come, his life has come to an end, and his son has to take up and become the next king, and his son's name is Solomon. So we see Solomon becoming king, and we see his reign. We see how he prays to God for wisdom, and how God gives him supernatural wisdom, and the things that he does with that wisdom. We see him building the temple. We see him constructing his his palace and the palace of his wife, and we see him marrying many wives as well. And how he used to do this is that he used to marry many wives so that he can unite the nations, so that they can be peace. As a matter of fact, during King Solomon's reign, there was no war. There was just peace, peace, peace. There was no fighting. He didn't fight like his dad. His dad was like, twende tukapigane. But Solomon's was just peace. And how he acquired this peace is by marrying many wives. It could have worked, but at the end of the day, it didn't end up working. We see the division in this book of 1 King. We see the division of the kingdom. We see that the kingdom divided into 2 kingdoms, which is the northern kingdom, which had the 11 tribes of Israel, and it was also called Israel. And then we see the other kingdom, which only had 1 tribe, which is the tribe of Judah, and it was called the southern kingdom, or Judah. And then we see a detailed list of the kings that reigned all the way from when Solomon was king. We see like who reigned in this kingdom, because after Solomon, so there was David and then there was Solomon. So if there was Saul, there was David, there was Solomon, and then after that, the nations split into two. So there were kings here and then there were kings here. So in the book of First King, we see a detailed list of who was reigning here in Israel and who was reigning in Judah. I'm just going to give you, like, some fun facts of these kings. Please note, I have written notes, so if you see me bending, I am reading from my notebook, which should not come as a surprise to you by now. All right, so let me first tell you the thing that is interesting from all the kings that were reigning in the side of Judah. So all the kings that came from the reign of Judah were from the line of David. It was David, Solomon, and then there was, I can't remember the name of that other king that came after that. Like, all of them actually came from the line of David. It was the son of David, then Solomon, son of David, then the son of Solomon, like that. Everybody was son of. Everybody actually came from the lineage of David, because that is a promise that God had made, that the lineage of David would always be kings. There would always be a king on the throne from the lineage of David. So all the kings that came from the side of Judah were all from the lineage of David. The other kings in the other side, which is the side of Israel, were not necessarily from the lineage of anybody. They were not necessarily the lineage of David. They were either chosen by God, or the one king overthrew the other king, so he became king, and then there's a son somewhere, and then a servant came or a commander came, killed this other king, became king. It was mother of Daniel, let me just say. It was a mess. There was no order. It was just anybody could have become king. You just need to either kill the other king, or God has to choose you, or your son becomes king. It was a mixture of all that. And like the side of Judah, where all of them came from the line of David. All right, so the capital city of Judah was Jerusalem, and the capital city of Israel was Samaria. There were two tribes. Okay, sorry, I forgot to tell you guys. There were actually two tribes in this kingdom of the southern kingdom, which was Judah, and then the northern kingdom had 10 tribes. Sorry, I didn't mention that. There were two tribes, and then this other kingdom had 10 tribes. All right, in the list of the kings all the kings that reigned in the side of Judah, from when the nation broke up into two kingdoms to when it was exiled, all of them were a total of 20 kings. A total of 20 kings in the side of Judah. And then in the side of Israel, from the time when it became like the northern kingdom, which was called Israel, all the way to when it was exiled, and it actually, after it was exiled, it was over, like it was done. This one was not, it was like the northern kingdom didn't come back from exile. That it was over, it was done. People just mixed up. So the total had a total of 19 kings in total. All right. So in the side of Judah, of the 20 kings that reigned from that season, from the time it became two kingdoms to the time it was exiled, 8 of them were good kings. 8 of them followed God, they worshipped God, and what the Bible says that they did right in the eyes of God. They did what was right in the eyes of God. So in the side of Judah, which is the lineage of David, we had 20 kings and 8 of them were good kings. On the side of Israel, which was like a mixture of anybody and everybody, we had 19 kings, and interesting sad fact, none of those kings was good. Can you imagine? Let that just sit there with you. Of those 19 kings, none of them did right in the eyes of God. No wonder that side, like that kingdom, was completely exiled and it never came back. Like that was, God completely destroyed it because of 19 kings. Those are many years. None of those kings did right in the eyes of God, which is really, really, really sad. And the worst of their king, the worst recorded king from Israel was King Ahab, who was married to Jezebel. And this couple were the worst. It's recorded they were the worst kings. I mean, they were the worst couple. That season was the worst season. because they had such a terrible king who is armed, and he was married to an even terrible wife who was Jezebel. So anyway, in this still First Kings, we see Elijah being introduced as a prophet, and we see his ministry as well. We see him summon all the gods, all the false gods. We see, I mean, God had a showdown where fire came from heaven and actually burnt the sacrifice that Elijah had set up, and all the other gods, nothing happened. Their God was asleep, either their God was in the toilet. I mean, you guys, you have read this story. We've been here. It was what, chapter 17 or 18, one of them, either chapter 17 or 18 of First Kings, where that showdown happens. And we see all those prophets actually being killed by Elijah, and Elijah coming out great. We see Elijah going through a depression, a moment of depression immediately after. Funny enough, immediately after this victory, Elijah went through a season of depression. We see God helping him come out of that depression, and we see even God raising for him an assistant, and that is where Elijah anoints Elisha. So yes, that's basically some of the stories that we have read and read and gone through in First Kings. But let me tell you what my main takeout of this whole chapter is. My main takeout for the chapter actually comes from 1 Kings chapter 9, from verse 4 onwards. From verse 4 to, just give me a minute. From verse 4 all the way to verse 7. And I'm just going to read it. But before I read it, let me just tell you what the takeout is. For me, the takeout from this whole chapter is what God's standard of godliness and integrity is. And it is not what we think it is. The thing is, it's not what we think it is. That is the best part about this whole book. That God's standard of integrity and God's standard of godliness is not what we think it is. Anyway, let me read for you what it says in 1 Kings chapter 9 verse 4. This is when Solomon had finished building the temple. He had dedicated it to the Lord, and now he had prayed and he had asked God to come and dwell in the temple. God had answered him. I mean, and this is what God was telling him after all that had happened. So he's saying, this is verse 4. This is God speaking to Solomon and saying, as for you, if you follow me with the integrity and godliness as David your father did, obeying all my commands and decrees and regulations, then I will establish the throne of your dynasty over Israel forever. For I made this promise to your father David, one of your descendants will always sit on the throne of Israel. So let's first fikisha that. That's verse 4 and 5. He says, as for you, if you follow, this is God speaking to Solomon, and he's telling him, if you follow me with integrity and godliness as your father David did, obeying all my commands, decrees, and regulations. Let's pause there. You guys, we know David. David vizuri sana. We know that David did not follow all of God's decrees, and I mean, he killed somebody. First, David slept with someone's wife. Then he was there trying to, in what is it called? Manipulate the situation and to make Uriah sleep with his wife so that the pregnancy would look like it was Uriah's. And then when that didn't work, he said, okay, let's just kill Uriah. And he had Uriah killed. And then he took the wife. As in, man, if there's anybody who did such a bad sin, it was David. Yet God here in this verse, which is chapter 9 verse 4, it says, as for you, if you follow me with integrity and godly integrity, someone who killed somebody over their wife. That is what God is saying, integrity and godliness, as your father did, obeying all my commands and decrees and regulations, then I will establish the throne of your dynasty over Israel forever. For I made this promise to your father David, one of your descendants will always sit on the throne of Israel. So you might wonder, okay, David clearly did not have the best integrity, honestly, yet God is here saying that he had integrity. So what is the standard of God? What is it that God says don't do? David didn't do this. Of all the things that he did, he didn't do this, and that is why God still sees him as a man of integrity, and that is why God still sees him as a godly man. All right. Pause there. Let's continue and see what, because I mean, God is very clear. God does not leave you just hanging. He tells you exactly, this is what I mean. This is the sin I am talking about. All right, so verse 5 says, but if you or your descendants abandon me and disobey the commands and decrees I have given you, and if you serve and worship other gods, that is where God draws the line. it's not whether we sin. It is not whether the standard of God of integrity and godliness is not that we shouldn't sin. Because I mean, God knows that we are human beings and we are prone to sin. That is not the standard of integrity. No, that is not the standard of integrity. The standard of integrity of God is that you don't serve other gods. That you always come back to him because he is a true and one God. He says, if you serve and worship other gods, then I will uproot Israel from this land, and this land that I have given them. I will reject this temple that I have made holy to honor my name, and I will make Israel an object of mockery and ridicule among the nations. And by the way, this happened because these guys, it's not about anything else. These guys served and worshipped other gods. So the reason why God is telling Solomon, don't be like your father David, it's not because David didn't sin, but David never, ever, at any one point, worshipped an idol god. David always acknowledged God to be the true God, and he never set up a shrine for another god. He never worshipped another god. He never turned his heart from God and gave it to an idol god. And that is God's standard of godliness and the God standard of integrity. And that is what God is telling us today. And that is what I feel like God told me, even in this whole chapter of 1 Kings, that his standard of godliness and integrity is not that I be sinless, but I never turn my heart from God, that I never worship any other God. And nowadays, gods can be money, can be status, can be even a spouse, can even be children, can be my pet, which is seated right here, Mixie. I could be worshiping anything else because I have placed that thing at a greater reverence than I have placed God. I've placed that thing with a greater priority than I have placed God. So, my lesson from the whole of 1 Kings is that God's standard of integrity and godliness is not my standard. It's not what I think. But God's standard of integrity and godliness is that I never worship any other God. I never put anything else above him. That is it. The end. Because that is where God draws the line. You do that and you're by yourself. You do that and God is just like, nitakuwa uproot. Utakuwa mockery of people. People will mock you. Like, I don't want that to happen to me. So that is basically what I've learned from that chapter. There have also been other lessons, like the blessings of a good king. The ones that were good kings, they enjoyed long life, they enjoyed long reigns, there was peace and prosperity even when they were leading. So basically, those are the two things, that there's a blessing and a reward that comes from being a worshiper of God and doing good and doing what is right in the eyes of God. And that is worshiping God and God only. And that we should just worship God. Don't worship other things. Don't worship material things. Don't worship your status. Don't worship your titles. Just worship God and put him as the first thing in your heart and even in your mind and in your life. Just place God where he's supposed to be. So that's what we learned from the book of 1 Kings. And even before I end this video, tomorrow we are going to go straight to the book of 2 Kings, because I mentioned that we're going to be doing the 2 Kings in the month of September. So tomorrow we go straight to the book of 2 Kings. So please be prepared. I hope you have invited your friends. Take this moment to invite your friends and tell them, hey, you guys, we're about to start a new book. Do you want to be part of this? Please invite them so that we can start this together. Again, if you're here for the very first time, please like, please subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss anything that I upload. Thank you so much for listening. This has been your girl, Wakeji Kamore, and this is Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.